Okay.
Yes, well,
We're
yes,
live,
yes,
actually. Okay, we're live. So,
Right.
yep.
Okay, thank you. Welcome to the Finance and Performance Committee meeting for Thursday, 20th September. Welcome to all the people online. Could I call on Councillor Loudon to read the council prayer, please?
Almighty God, as members of the Rangitikei District Council, we give thanks for all the good things of our district and the advantages we enjoy. We pray that you will give us wisdom and guidance as we conduct the affairs of this meeting. We pray for all the communities and the district we represent. Help us to be fair and honest in our discussions, and help us to work together in unity for the welfare of all our people. Amen.
We have received apologies from Councillor Dalgety and Councillor Corker. Are there any more apologies? Anyone? No? I would move that they be accepted. Do I have a seconder? Seconder, the Mayor, Councillor Wilson. I have not been notified of any public forum as of at the moment. Conflict of interest. Members are reminded of the obligation to declare any conflicts of interest that they may have in respect of items on this agenda, or they may bring it up at the time of the item. Confirmation of order of business. Take into account the explanation provided by the items not on the meeting agenda. No changes to the confirmation of order of business. I don't have to move it. Right, okay. Confirmation of minutes. Minutes have been circulated to everybody. We need to go through them.
I just asked for alterations.
Okay, are there any alterations, any comments on the minutes?
Just happy to move as circulated, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor, and seconded by Councillor Carter. Yes, thank you. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Dialogue actions. Am I reading that?
Yeah, just with regard to follow action 3, I'm presuming, Mr. Toombs, that's actually the action that I was referring to. So just for the councillor's awareness of this follow-up action, I've discovered properties that have been passed with code of compliance but never added to the rating database. So effectively, our rates remain the same, but the share is apportioned to other people. So if somebody builds a brand new house, in this case there was the latest case was a $1.3 million home, and the capital value was about $5,000 or $10,000. And this is asking around the feasibility of doing a match against property title against rates paid. And I was talking to Nadine, and she said they've got a database of when new properties were built and added to the database. And for instance, there's a couple of years where only one house was being recorded as being added to databases, and I suspect that probably unlikely. So I'm not quite sure how it's going to be for staff to solve the issue. It's going to be embarrassing if we find a number of houses that have not been charged rates.
Does Mr. Toombs want to comment?
No. I think this is myself and the CE and head of regulator. We'll get together next week and
So do we want to roll it on to the next meeting, or will we get brought up as a separate issue?
it'll be on the action list for discussion next month. Yeah.
It just stays there until we have a way of doing it or answering a question.
Thank you, councillor.
Chair, if I may, and further to that and understanding the issue that's been highlighted by the mayor, or potential issue, I guess the further question to that is not so much what's happened, what may have happened historically, but the question is what is the process to ensure that it may not happen again? So I'd be wanting to see as part of this process to come back, what is the process when something is signed off? And just a quick step through that so we can understand that if this has happened in the past, maybe it was an anomaly, but how do we ensure it may not happen in the future? So just if I could request that that be part of that discussion when it comes back to the table.
Thank you. I believe that would be part of the.
Yeah, it's actually in the actions that are suggested process to be put in place, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Any more comments on that?
It's just unfortunate that my house wasn't on that.
We need to build a new one. Do I need to move that?
Yep.
I move that the chair's report,
Oh, follow-up actions.
the
Follow-up actions.
follow-up actions be moved. Do I have a seconder?
Received, you want to
Thank you, councillor Wilson. Chair's report. I have no chair's report today, and nothing from the regular chair, so does that need to be moved? That we don't have a report?
I will just note that you don't have one
Okay,
then,
thank you.
so we don't need to move it.
Reports for decision. Would Mr. Toombs like to take us through this, please?
Thank you very much. Yeah, so Treasury Management Policy updates. Officers would like to update the Treasury Management Policy as per the paper. This was discussed at last week's Risk and Assurance Committee, and a couple of suggested amendments were discussed, and they're referred to in section 2.3 and 2.4 of the agenda paper. And the two items have actually been included in the attachment as noted in the paper at sections 3.6 and 3.9.1. So I believe several members of this committee have already gone through this in detail. So I'm happy to take questions.
Councillor Maud?
Just 2.2.3. I'm not sure, because I know Councillor Loudon asked a lot of these questions last week. But in the example where you have, the interest calculations and stuff, you've got $35 million worth of rates up from 24 million in annual revenue, up to 55 million, up from 30 million. Are they realistic?
Yeah. So they're based on,
Yep, sorry.
yeah, they're based on the annual plan figures at the time of drafting the policy. So that's why I've updated this, because the figures in there were 3 years old.
And the other question is just on the foreign exchange exposure. I noticed the word you've used is does not envisage having foreign exchange except for procurement. Is that strong enough wording? Because envisage means you could possibly.
The mayor would like to answer, I believe.
I think the issue is under local government rules, we can't engage in foreign exchange transactions.
No, I realise that. But the words in the document say they do not envisage having foreign exchange, and I wonder if that word's strong enough. I mean, it should be we do not. If the local government policy or the policy is not having foreign exchange dealings, apart from when we're doing a procurement process where, the dollars might change
Yes,
with the exchange rate. So I don't know, that's just a question. Is the word envisage the right word?
I think so, but it's been there. It seems to have been covered under the Local Government Act that we're not indulging in any foreign exchange act. So
I'm just making that point because the Risk and Assurance wanted
I see.
comment on that in there. So
I see. We'll refer it to Risk and Insurance, the chairman of that, if they want to take that up. But
I might just note that the Risk and Assurance have asked this policy to go back to them before June. So they'll be looking at it again in 6
they
months.
could look at that wording. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Strong enough. Thank you.
Then
Councillor Councillor Loudon.
Oh, councillor Loudon.
What's the question? Page 19(3), financial implications. Can you explain what an inappropriate treasury management policy means? Just
Poorly worded. So, yeah, so poorly worded or not appropriate to our needs. So for as an example, if we were to have borrowing covenants far away in excess of what LGFA promote, for example.
Yeah, because it sort of comes down to for impact on strategic risks. I was just concerned about that. Although we've changed some figures like the 280% up until the LGFA levels, what it just means is that it gives us the ability to borrow more money. And are we falling into the trap of borrowing more and more and more because somebody says you can borrow more?
That's for you to decide.
Yes, I know.
Respect.
I'm just saying the implications are that are we falling into that sort of pattern?
Yeah, or if I may. Yes, so what the Treasury Management Policy does, it incorporates the LGFA, which are basically sector-wide adopted borrowing covenants. It doesn't say you must borrow up to this amount. It says if you choose to,
Yeah.
this is where we recommend you cap your borrowing.
Yeah.
It's not a recommended level of borrowing.
Was their cap lower in the previous time? Because our cap was lower, 175.
Yeah, so the three of the caps are based on your income and expense profile. So as income goes up each year, then the cap's going to raise up with that one.
Yeah.
And the fourth cap is based on how much you've got in the bank. You can borrow 10 times what your bank balance is, basically. So the bank balance goes up, that one can go up.
Yeah, through a series of these caps are self-imposed council limits as well. So we were pretty conservative compared to some of the other councils.
I believe this is like raising your credit card limit.
Yes.
And if you choose to spend, that's the decision of the council at the time. So don't shoot the person who raises the limit, because we will be discussing at every level any investment we make, whether it be capital or otherwise.
It just reflects probably a sign of the times that every council is having to borrow more money to manage their...
Most of us are very acutely aware of this, especially with the exterior.
Through you, Chair, I'd just like to point out though that having debt has some real advantages, and that the advantages in an intergenerational funding. The alternative to that is that you push your rates position to fund within a year to intolerable levels. But the intergenerational effect means that the benefits attained from providing a resource, such as a new plant or facility or whatever, is spread over a longer time against the users. So that's the philosophical argument, if you like.
Thank you. Is that
We could argue those points separate. I'm not going to.
yes, it's an ongoing question.
Can I just point out, Chair, if I may, through you, that this is a management policy that gives us the ability to make decisions. Those decisions still have to be actively made by the council. I think we understand that. To have a lower position and then try to make an active decision may then put us in a situation where we're breaching a self-imposed policy that we've then got to go out and circulate to change again, and may actually hinder our ability to make active decisions at the time to take the advantage of those decisions. So we're just putting this in place, and I think Mr. Toombs is 100% right. All these decisions will always come back to council, which will be then taken on board in a far greater level of conversation than we're probably going to have here. Because it's quite speculative. But
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Any more comments for this on this report? I'll move that it be.
The amendments to the policy.
happy to second Chair.
Recommendation is Finance and Performance Committee endorse the amendments to the Treasury Management Policy. And second, sorry? Councillor Wilson, thank you. All those in favour? Against? Thank you.
I'll just remind everyone that this will go to this afternoon's council. Now the Finance and Performance Committee has endorsed it. It goes to council this afternoon for approval.
Yes, of course. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Toombs. Right, reports now. Reports, information, financial snapshot. Mr. Toombs.
Yeah, thank you. So this is the management accounts reporting for the 2 months ended August. Unfortunately, with August being just a 2-month period, there's often overflows from the financial year end, reversal of accruals and invoices not yet in. So there are more timing differences in August than we maybe get in later months. But I'm just happy to take questions.
Councillor Vaughan.
My question is around, we've gone from last financial year into this financial year, so all our reporting figures are now the new financial year. And it came to me this morning, how do we sign off on the budget? Like, I know it goes, I rang Fee about it. We don't get in front of us the budget for the year per se to say this is X and this is amount. It just seems to be accumulated through the annual plan and the long-term plan. Is that right?
Yeah, the annual plan includes the budget for each group of activities and all of council, yeah.
Yeah. So, but I think it would be helpful, well, particularly for me, to have it a bit more, this is the budget for the year and as a discussion, and then sign off on it. Because it seems to be a whole lot of little processes that get to the budget without it having all in one place.
Michael?
Sorry.
That's okay. So you talk about, so we have an income and expenditure budget that
Yeah.
collectively become our statement of financial performance. And then we have a capital budget.
Yeah.
Are you specifically referring to any of them?
No, I just can't. I'm just thinking it from a business point of view is that if I'm sitting on a board, I get the budget for the year in front of me and say, yeah, right, I sign it off. But it seems to be a whole lot of little processes that end up being the budget.
No, in the annual plan, there is a page on the profit and loss account in our terms budget.
And we've signed off on that in the annual
There's a
plan.
cash flow budget, there's a funding impact statement budget,
Yeah.
and there's a capital budget.
Okay, so when we sign off the annual plan,
Yeah.
we sign off the budget. Okay, no, that's
And
all right.
it's good because it's actually broken down by group of activities too, not just at a very high level.
Okay, so I need to be a bit more focused on the annual plan budget when we sign off on it. Yeah.
I believe, Councillor Vaughan, that we are going to have another Finance 101 session at some stage that will probably go through some of these points that a lot of the, perhaps the new councillors, including me, will have to get the nuts and bolts of it because the accounting is...
No, it's just that I'm probably more used to seeing the budget in front of me as a set thing to sign off on rather than all the little steps that you have to go
It is of
through.
a different form to what we are used to running as businesses, but okay, thank you.
Can I just clarify something? We didn't have another 101 planned. We did actually do that early in the new training, but if it's something you would like, we'll have to schedule another workshop. It's just your comment.
It was mentioned at a previous meeting by our by Mr.
Ross? Kevin Ross?
No. Jones, Mr. Jones did mention that at some stage that in one of our previous, but we don't need to schedule something right now, but it's something that I think we should keep in mind, right? Maybe later this year, but we should.
And there was a discussion, and it was a discussion really around the need, especially for new councillors, when you come into the game, you're bombarded with so much information that going through a process around understanding, going back after you've been in the seat a little while, to understanding the processes around finance and rating positions and so on would be valuable, but it hasn't been programmed.
I'm just happy if Mr. Toombs is happy to answer my dumb questions.
I wouldn't say I'm happy, I'll do it.
I think it's actually a great question for Councillor Maughan to ask, because we can't just assume that everybody understands the process.
No.
And, the answers that Mr. Toombs has given are absolutely correct. We go through an annual plan, long-term plan processes, the sign-off, including sign-off against the asset management plans, etc. Councillor Maughan, one of the things that comes up as part of that process is during the year, there will be unbudgeted expenditure that gets added to those budgets, and they get picked up in the annual reports and so on. But if you want a running total of the unbudgeted expenditure during the year against that report might be useful.
What I intend to do in this specific report, especially on the capital items, start keeping a list of all the agreed unbudgeted capital spend, so we keep an eye on that. Yeah, I started doing it last year.
Did you get that, Councillor Maughan?
I'm looking for page 62 in the annual report.
Annual plan. Yeah. I might just, at the risk of breaching any protocols, if anyone's got any finance-related queries, feel free to email me. And I'm fortunate enough that I live and breathe this stuff, but some of you may have a life and you may not. It's unfortunate.
Thank you, Mr. Toombs. I move that the report financial snapshot be received. Seconder.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. All in favour? Against? Thank you. Treasury and debt. Page 42. Mr. Toombs, would you like to take us through this, please?
Thank you very much. So this report, unlike the previous one, isn't backwards looking, it's forwards looking, and it's a not prediction, it's showing where we can likely end up at the end of the financial year regarding our treasury position based on what we currently know. And just what it will highlight as we go through the year, if any of our predicted year-end ratios are worsening. At the moment, they're all sitting quite comfortably within the covenants.
Thank you, Mr. Toombs. I know this is going to be looking quite different if we start spending money on our capital projects. When? Do we have any questions on this? Comments, please? Mr. Morgan, do we have?
Well, no, I just think Mr. Toombs' comments are quite right. It's so early in the financial year that it actually doesn't make a lot of analysis sense.
Right. Yes. Okay. So we will. I will move that this Treasury and debt report be received. Seconder. Councillor Carter. Thank you. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Some real bad debts.
Thank you. So at the request of the committee, this report is provided every 6 months to show where our debt position summary snapshot is.
Are there any comments on this page? Just being a new
No, the external agency we use as our debt collection is doing a great job at pursuing these, and we're obviously going through the larger ones to start off with. We're now getting into the smaller ones with higher volume of smaller amounts we're now collecting and chasing up.
Very good. All done. Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Just a question for me. With your external agency, which I do know was an active decision made by council a couple of years back to go through that, there is a cost associated with it. Is that a percentage of debt recovered or is that a fixed fee?
Can I take that on notice and circulate? I'm not sure.
Second part of that question, if I may, the reason why I'm asking that question is I just want to know if there's a percentage of cost of debt recovered that they retain, or if it's a fixed fee. Because was just wondering where that is shown, and does that end up showing in our rating account as a rates remission or a rates loss, or over where does that find? I'm just looking to make sure that the numbers truly reflect what is the cost of a debt recovery, so that it's not just seen as council is either remitting rates or not collecting those rates somewhere in that pie. If I could see that.
Yeah, I'll email the committee if that's okay.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Mr. James. No other questions? I'll move sorry, your worship.
Yeah, with the pie charts over the years, a lot depends on the timing of when the report is generated. So if it is generated 2 days after a rates instalment, you're going to get percentage, that you will always get people that are just late, and
Of course.
it doesn't give a really true indication. So I've always been more interested in rates that are overdue after a period of in excess of a month, for example.
Is that information on here?
This shows that debts that have been forwarded to the agency, that they'd only be forwarded to the agency if they're at least 4 months in arrears.
Right. Thank you.
And these are not, in response to Councillor Wilson, these are not remitted rates because of those are council decisions.
Just a query about the mortgagee process. Is that the council putting those rates, those people into that process, or is that an external sort of process that goes on for those people and we just happen to be part of that?
That's the agency on our behalf, having tried to work out payment plans with the particular ratepayer and getting nowhere. Last resort is mortgagee sale, or threat of mortgagee sale, which often results in action as opposed to the actual sale.
And are those numbers changing?
I'd have to go back and check.
Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Chair, for years there had been no mortgagee sales at all. And sometimes the cost of taking people through the mortgagee sale is more than the value of the property that you get back for it. But over the last handful of years, we've taken a number through. And that's common. For even council like Auckland, for instance, there were years in which they didn't take mortgagee sales through.
Unfortunately, Councillor Wilson.
Just to support what the Mayor has said there, and having unfortunately sat around this table in the past where we have had to make some decisions around that, it is not something that council seeks to do. It is an extremely stressful time for all people that are involved should that arise, and it is not a first course of action. Council takes every possible step to work with and to avoid that scenario happening, and it is quite a process before it comes to a decision making from an active decision by councillors to make that decision. So it is quite a process, but it's not a first line of attack. Council does a significant amount of work to try and avoid those situations arriving. I just want to make that noted.
Could I ask if this is an operational matter, or is actually passed through council that we take a mortgagee action?
I'm not sure. There's a message. Well, I don't recall having one since I've been there.
It's brought to council's attention.
For every mortgagee sale?
Council initiates the action by council decision.
So it's very
So it does come back to us. But it's important also to understand the hierarchy of payment here. So if a property has outstanding rates, they may also have other debt that they owe. So tax, if there are tax issues, I think in hierarchy they come first So IRD have first claim. Councils tend to have a second claim. And then you have the secured and then unsecured. But, yeah.
Very, very good. That's some assurance to council and ratepayers.
I think we have one, without going into details of the property at the moment, that is difficult because we can't actually ascertain who the ownership sits with. So you have somebody that's deceased and it's passed, and trying to work out, the trust details of the property and who would be the beneficiaries is difficult.
Thank you. That's a good discussion on. Oh, yeah,
I've
yes.
just got a question around the status of active files. So you've got the different, first letter sent, legal action, legal approval. So is that an indication of the various steps that are undertaken to recover these bad debts? So that's so I'm just looking at it, like there's a Māori land is a specific kind of category on its own. Does that have its own process? Is it different to the other?
Can I answer that one? Yes, so that the heading you're looking at, status of active files, that actually refers to the bar graph underneath it. The pie chart, which has got the summary of all files. Oh, sorry, I what you're saying. So the Maori land isn't
There is like
included
one
there.
little
Yeah,
bar
yeah.
there which refers to Māori land. So it just made me think, is there a separate process for?
That would imply, yes. Can I look into that and get back to you?
Right.
James Terms, Your Worship, you don't have any knowledge to.
Yeah, so there is a standing item that refers to, for instance, to iwi landlocked land and so on, in terms of rate remission policies and so on.
Okay, thank you. No more questions. I'll move that the summary of bad debts report be received. Seconder, Councillor Carter, thank you. All in favour?
Aye.
Yes. Moved, thank you. Quarterly property sales.
Again, it's another report that we provided the committee at their request, showing a whole range of data and stats regarding sales within the district for the last quarter. And we note that there are some anomalies that would show distortions in some of these figures, as noted in the cover paper.
Thank you, Mr. Terms. Do we have any questions on this report?
Perhaps just one for me. This is one that I know we've questioned this one before. Mr. Terms, do you and your team reference this data yourself directly when we get this report, or is it really just for this committee's purposes?
It's for committee's purposes, yeah.
Okay, so it's of no reference back to you with regards to the quarterly sales or anything like, and anything to do with your ratings or?
I don't use it for any decision making, no. I may refer to it for background info, but it doesn't feed into any decision making, no.
I'm just wondering the value of it, that's all. I know I've questioned it before.
The chair requested it last time.
In the absence of the chair, I will no longer question it as she is away. So I'll use some diplomacy there and withdraw any further questioning on that one.
I believe the question has come up before. Does this cost us particularly
A bit of staff time
staff week?
and frustration.
Right. Right. Thank you, Mr. James. I will move the quarterly property sales report be received. Seconder, Councillor Carter, thank you. All in favour? And against? Carried. Annual report 22-23. Progress update, Mr. Toombs.
Yeah, happy to take the cover report as read. The audit's continuing. No issues has been identified, but until the audit's finished, you don't get too excited.
Okay, thank you. Your Worship?
A few questions. So this is a draft position on the report. and there is quite a lot of substance still to go into it, especially under the various categories. At what stage do you want our feedback around, for instance, some of the format and setup has changed in terms of other annual reports?
If you've got any feedback you'd like to give us, maybe not in this meeting, but happy to take feedback as it arises.
You know, for instance, right at the end of the report, it also gives a photo and background of who the councillors are, and that's normally been at the head of a document, to my knowledge, or it has been there, and just so some of the layout changes as well in terms of that hierarchy. But I'd be very interested in what is seen as the strategic or relevant issues in terms of, for instance, wastewater, etc. I'd like to see that, make sure that comes back to council for adoption.
I have a quick, comment about the format. A couple of years ago, we did change the format. That has been the same for the last few years with the elected members at the back of the report. I think you might be thinking about the annual plan. Yeah. So the layout and format has been the same. I can't answer the wastewater.
No, this is,
To be honest, Mr. Chair, this is a report that very, very few people will actually read.
From the auditor.
But it's got to go through this audit process, etc.
It's a legal requirement of.
Right, yeah, absolutely. And that's where it also picks up the, unbudgeted expenditure. So it's a relation to the annual plan, the LTP.
Also,
Yeah, just a question for me. The audit process is a very, very detailed one that goes through council operations effectively and costing structure, but it's also a very expensive one that we have to fund, and it does form a considerable amount of money as our operating expense. Now, the best way to do that is to make sure that the team that's providing the information is on board with audit, which I'm sure you are, because I know that I've been in the building here. But a general question to yourself, Mr. Toombs, and Ms. Gordon, is are we all over our internal processes with regards to audit? Are we up to speed with what they are expecting us to be with regards to the timeframes and constraints to produce audit reports?
so yes, we're on track with the timetable.
Yep.
We would like more finance staff so we could have a better, more robust finance system. And so happy to take on some unbudgeted operating expenditure if that is what you're requesting. Yep, okay.
Ms. Gordon, you're comfortable of where the process is at the moment with regards to our timelines?
Certainly haven't raised any red flags with us at this time, and I think they fire in a lot of requests, but it seems to be they're getting the responses they need when they need them, so.
I had a meeting with the audit manager. He's not on site yesterday, and the senior audit planner as well. And yeah, there's things they're waiting on, but there's no alarm bells yet.
Yeah, the reason for the question is there is some layers of risk if we fall behind in our internal processes to do that. Risk with to costs, i.e. more unbudgeted expense than what we've allowed for, but also running shy of some time frame constrictions to make sure that we've got an appropriate audit report. So.
Can I just?
sorry, your worship.
Just thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just on that point, I have to say that the additional work is a lot, and there's always that balance between business as usual and things we absolutely have to do, and then all these additional requests. And for us, with our staff complement, it is a balance that we've got to strike as to where do we spend our time. Especially in my activity, there's a lot of questions from audit that will absorb all my time if I'm not careful.
Yeah, through your chair, it's in response that I'm well aware of that, but I was just, I guess, raising it really to the committee that it's a lot of work, and I understand that, and just,
Which is unavoidable.
which is unavoidable. It's a process we have to go through. Yeah.
Your worship, would you?
Yeah, just think that you've got to make sure which audit process you're talking about as well. So the audit process around the annual report is one thing, but the audit process around the formation of the LTP and consultation processes, all of that, are probably far more challenging than the audit around the annual report. The annual report tends to be factual in nature, and it's probably a little bit clearer in terms of process.
Just add to what you're saying, we, Anna and myself had a meeting with Chris Webber yesterday online, who's our auditor for the long-term plan. And his words to us were that they're busy with the CCO audits and a number of others at the moment. And next week they start looking at long-term plan stuff. So they're sending us a self-assessment next week, which we always complete, and that will give them confidence about where we're at in our process and what we have discussed already, what's under review, and also committed to the end of January for the consultation document and the supporting information audit that they will undertake, and they'll be on site to do that. So we are in quite regular correspondence with them at the moment now through the LTP.
Further from me, without labouring the point, where does this feedback? Does this come back to this committee, or do we see it at the next level at council with some sort of an idea of where we're sitting with these sort of things as a reporting back process?
So is this for the long-term plan?
Well, I guess generally across the board, perhaps the long-term plan. Where does that report? Does it come to general council that we look at our the timeframes with audit and make sure we're on track?
Yeah, I suppose I present that as part of that roadmap in each workshop, and it's also put online as well.
Okay,
So
cool.
yeah.
Excellent, thank you.
Worship.
Yeah, a whole lot of the cost of audit is not a financial audit. So when people come into council, and I knew when I first came into council, I thought audit was purely a financial audit. And far from that, it's going back and checking that the council processes have been correct, and that's where even the words that we use in our documents, do they match up with other stuff? It's
Everything. And it's like that disclosure that I've asked you to fill out. They want to see if councillors are making disclosures about any contractual arrangements they have with councils. So that's why we have to do it each year. It feeds into the annual report.
so that's
I
a
head off to
huge frustration.
Yeah, well aware of that.
I did not realise how much auditing went on in this.
Oh, yeah.
This
We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars over an LTP.
when it gets to $1 million, we'll have another discussion. Okay, I'll move that this, which one are we doing? Annual report, progress update be received. Councillor Carter, thank you. All in favour? Yes, carried. Which number are we up to now?
10.6.
6. Council report proposed changes to budget.
Thank you. So you would have seen from this afternoon's agenda that the attachment to this paper is going to council for consideration and decision this afternoon. It's a standard thing roughly around this time of each financial year. Once the previous financial year figures are becoming more finalised, we can see which projects that we had budgeted for weren't completed, so therefore would need to be rolled forward into this year. There is one change I've identified since writing this report. If I can scroll you down to the new capital budgets. Yeah, so the top of page 58 of this agenda refers to no proposed budget amendment being for the Ratana treatment plant. I might have spelled that wrong. Now, I wrote that before I'd seen this afternoon's paper going to council about this, and this afternoon's paper does recommend including 870 grand's worth of additional capital budget in this financial year for this project, noting that there'll be a larger amount needed in the following financial year. So that'll be discussed more this afternoon, unless you'd like me to go through it in more detail now.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Your Worship.
Yeah, page 59, the transfer capital budgets to operating budgets at 400k, 3.12. This is something that I raised with you, but these two transfers to operating expense would normally change the rating position quite heavily, but they're both encapsulated within the Better Off funding in total. And do either projects, are they employing people to do them?
No.
So
So staff are overseeing various projects connected with
so
these.
that's done with existing staff. If they weren't, my question would be, would those staff be tied to a short-term contract? So we're not faced with a carryover.
I can just make a point, the one around, the town centre regeneration, you'll see there's an agenda item on this afternoon's council report around that, and it's staff-led. Arno's the project sponsor for this, and we're asking for a councillor representative on this one as well, and it's purely to look at working with community groups about what improvements we can make throughout town centres. This might be murals, it could be seating, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Can I just explain to councillors why, if it wasn't funded, the difference is huge? Because if it was capital funded, it would be loan funded and would have a very low rate impact. But the moment it becomes operational, it needs to be funded within that operational year. And if it was 400,000, that's probably about 1.7% increase on rates, for example, but it's of that magnitude. But because this is all externally funded, it doesn't apply.
Very good. Any more questions on this? Yeah. I'll move that this report, proposed changes to the budget be received. Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Wilson. All in favour? No. Against? Carried. Public feedback report. Ms. Prince.
Thank
Take
you.
us through this, please.
I'm happy to take the report as read. Follows the usual reporting process. Yeah.
I note that there's been very positive comments about the toilets in Mangaweka. Do we feed back to the people who look after these facilities?
Yes, we certainly do.
I think. Could I ask what opening hours do Martin Public Facilities are?
The Follett Street toilets, they're 24
Whereabouts?
hours in Follett Street next to Martin Park.
Is it 24 hours?
Yes, and then I'm sorry, I don't know, the Centennial Park, Wilson Park and the playground are closed overnight. I think it's possibly around 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. in summer. I'm 100% sure on that.
I passed through last weekend and I thought it was locked, and the police pulled me over. So.
We won't ask.
I'm here.
Okay.
Just through you, Chair, just on your comment about the significant response to the condition of the toilets across the board, and the fact that there is some feedback back to the people that maintain them. I think it's really important that we do note that as a council, we're extremely grateful as well, and that our thanks should go to them, because they're the people on the ground doing the hard work, which is a significant part of the the impact of our district and makes what it is. So I think we as a council should be passing on our thanks to them as well, not only from Galen and the management team, but I think as council as a whole, I think it's very important that we acknowledge these people across the board in all facets of council. So just would like to make a note of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Worship?
It's more of an assets question, but since we're on toilets, Happy Napier Road, Danny, where are we at with the toilets there?
So that facility is now open. The new toilets, such as those ones, have counters in them as well, so we can tell the amount of use it's getting. So when we do the quarterly report, the community quarterly report, we'll have a graph identifying, showing the use that those toilets are getting.
And that's a dry vault.
Yes, that's correct.
So how often does somebody actually need to get a check on them?
So at the moment, we're checking on them weekly.
And there will be a process around recognition to the initial providers of the previous facility.
That's correct.
When's that likely to happen?
So we're working on that now, looking at a plaque to acknowledge those people and also the funders.
On a table, not the toilet?
Correct.
It sounds pedantic, but for the service that we've had from 2 stations to provide facilities and maintain them for years, but we didn't really want to see that for instance, the Plymouth name and
Williams,
yeah, as a attached to a toilet.
Yeah, so,
So it is important to them.
Councillor Wilson.
Just to comment, I'm very much looking forward to in future years celebrating the opening of more than just toilets around the district, more significant infrastructure that we can have plaques and discussions about. I'm just making that as a broad comment.
Speaking of which, are there comments on anything apart from toilets today? No, nothing? I will move that the public feedback performance report be moved, seconded by Councillor Wilson. Thank you. All in favour? Against? Carried.
So,
What's the go now?
you close the meeting.
Okay, meeting closed at 10:22. Thank you for your attendance.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Beck. Please.